Hello. Very good afternoon. We will short our today's session just in a. All are requested to please stay connected. Hello, Dr. Anupam sir. Hello. Hello, Dr. Anupam sir. Hello, Dr. Anupam sir. Hello, Dr. Anupam sir. Are you there? Hello. I request everyone to please stay connected. Today is very special session in this series because today is World Accreditation Day. So we are celebrating this to mark the celebration. We have with us today is very grateful to respected Shri Anil Johri sir, who is with us today as a special guest speaker, who is going to deliberate on a topic accreditation. So be stay tuned because today we are going to learn so much things, basics, and so much things on accreditation. So all are requested to please be patient and be there and please stay connected. Dr. Anupam sir. Hello.
आगे जी आगे
अजय
आप आगे इसमें
नहीं तो ट्राई कर रहा हूँ
Just in a short while, we will start the session. All are requested to please keep your mics off. There will be a short delay, just few seconds.
I can see Anupam now.
Yes, sir. Sir is joining just a few minutes. We regret the delay. Dr. Anupam sir, shall we start? Hello. Hello. Dr. Anupam sir, shall we start the session? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Shall we start the session, sir?
Yeah, Poonam, start. Sorry,
Thank
there's
you.
a problem at this end, but
Yes.
I have joined for mobile.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. Very good afternoon and namaste, everyone. Myself, Dr. Poonam Vajpayee. On behalf of whole RAV team, I would like to welcome our respected dignitaries, respected governing body members, respected Gurujans, our today's respected guest speaker, Shri Anil Johri sir, all the scholar students and social media live viewers. I welcome you all in today's 98th webinar in this weekly webinar series Gyan-Ganga or Knowledge Voyage. Before commencing the session, I would like to pay sincere gratitude and pranams to our source of great motivation, inspiration, respected Padma Bhushan Vaidya Devendra Trigunaji, President of Governing Body RAV, respected Vaidya Shri Manoj Nestri ji, Advisor Ayurveda, Ministry of Ayush, respected Vaidya Shri Anupam Srivastava sir, Director of RAV, for their constant direction and encouragement. We are, as you all are aware, that we are heading towards completion of 100 successful session in this series, which has been possible due to active participation of our all respected gurus, gurujans, students, and all the viewers. Now, today is a World Accreditation Day. So, to mark the celebration of this day, we are grateful to respected Shri Anil Johri sir, who is today with us as a guest speaker and who is going to enlighten us on a topic, role of accreditation in Ayush sector. Shri Anil Johri sir is ex-CEO of National Accreditation Board for Certification Body, that is NABCB, and Executive Board and Technical Committee member of ATAB RAB. Post session, there will be a question and answer round to resolve the queries of viewers. Now, I would like to request Dr. Anupam Srivastava sir to please have a welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam. I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Dr.
Yes, sir.
Poonam. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam. Once again, on behalf of my entire RAV team, I welcome all the participants who has joined on this virtual platform, including our respected Gurujans, our GB members, and all the Ayurveda fraternity experts and various teachers who have joined. I am saying, welcome you all on behalf of this RAV family. I welcome you all. Really, we are fortunate. Marks, we are close to 100 marks that Dr. Poonam has stated. And today, and this become only due to your constant effort and support. And no doubt there has been also motivational support. There is all support we have got from the Ministry of Ayush itself, where our Honorable Secretary Ayush, well, Shri Rajesh Kotesha sir, has already constantly, a couple of days back even, he has all supported us. He has guided us for the Gyan-A series, and also our technical mentor, that is who is Dr. Manoj Nestri sir, who is advisor to Ayurveda to the Ministry of Ayush. The people behind for all this creation of this platform, and definitely why not the constant support and the freedom given by my own GB president, Padam Shri Padam Bhushan Devendra Tugnaji, who has he's always been constantly supporting us. And we are thankful to our
Please
Gurus.
unmute.
Oh, it is. My voice is not coming.
Sometimes it's going away, but right now you're audible. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is today what I'm thankful to all. Today, very quickly, I come on the topic and we will try to learn also from our today's expert. The topic is accreditation. This topic may be not as a usual topic and accreditation. It could be something as conventional methods of the study and knowledge. This is entirely different. It may be sometime not match with our present understanding about the education system, present regulatory provisions. It may not match. So I will request all the. He has been kind enough to guide us, and he has been also part of drafting ATAB scheme, accreditation scheme from the RAV, and that too on this thing in a full support without any any charge, any consultancy, and he has many more things to his credit. He has drafted YCB. A lot of things he has done for the Ayush sector, including the certification schemes. I will request Dr. Poonam to brief about his a brief bio sketch, including what contribution has given to the Ministry of Ayush. Yes, today accreditation is very new. Ask you, pardon? तो आज का जो थीम है, आज का जो टॉपिक है, वो एक नॉर्मल जो एजुकेशन सिस्टम हमारे यहाँ जो प्रेवलेंट है या जिसके हम आदी हैं उससे हटके है, और उसको समझने के लिए थोड़ी धैर्य की आवश्यकता है, और साथ साथ हम अगर ध्यान से चीजों को समझेंगे तो मुझे लगता है एक अच्छा वे फॉरवर्ड है. आज जैसा डॉक्टर स्पीकिंग मोर ऑन द टॉपिक, आई अगेन रिक्वेस्ट, मैं डॉक्टर पूनम से फिर करती हूँ कि एक बार जौहरी जी के बारे में थोड़ा और ब्रीफ बताएं. प्लीज स्विच ऑफ योर माइक्स प्लीज. डॉक्टर पूनम एक बार फिर से बताएं और उसके बाद then I will not come between the experts and the listeners also. I will also listen. Over to you, Dr. Poonam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for a great welcome address and your insightful words. I request everyone to please keep your mics off. It's a humble request. Now, I would like to share the brief introduction of our today's respected guest speaker, Shri Anil Johri sir. He is former CEO of National Accreditation Board for Certification Body, a constituent board of Quality Council of India, and National Accreditation Body for Certification and Inspection attached to Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Sir possesses 41 plus years of experience in the field of quality standard, certification and accreditation, having worked earlier in Bureau of Indian Standards and the Export Inspection Council, which is India's official export regulator and certification body under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. He has rendered his services as advisor, director, and CEO as well. During his tenure as CEO, NABCB secured a number of international equivalences such as product certification, inspection, various management systems like food safety, information security, occupational health and safety, and energy management system and personal certification. He also led development of a number of voluntary certification schemes of QCI, notably Ayush Mark for Ayush products, ICMBD scheme for medical devices, yoga certification, traditional healer certification, IND-GAP, India GHP, India HACCP certification in agri-food sector, star rating scheme for private security agencies. Beside lead assessor for accreditation bodies like NABCB, ALB, in USA, he is peer evaluator for the Asia Pacific Accreditation Corporation as well as International Accreditation Forum, that is IAF. He has also led the development of recently launched good clinical practices professional certification scheme under Clinical Development Services Agency of THSTI in DBT as well as accreditation of Ayurveda training courses globally under newly created ATAB board at RAV. He has been part of India's trade negotiation with various countries like USA, UK. He is nationally and internationally recognized expert, having worked with such international bodies such as UNFCCC, UNIDO, FAO, APO. He is the member of board for yoga certification, naturopathy certification, and Ayurveda training accreditation set up by Ministry of Ayush. He continues to be a member of core group and the Department of Commerce coordinating development of technical regulation in India since 2017. And he writes extensively on standards, regulation, and conformity assessment related issue. Now, I would like to request Shri Anil Johri sir to please proceed with his deliberation. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
Thank you, Poonam and Anupam.
Anil, sir.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible, sir. Audible, sir. Please proceed.
Okay. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you, Poonam, and thank you, Anupam, for inviting me to this gathering. As Anupam has already said, that this might be a slightly different topic for the people who are gathered here, but let's see if I can make you understand and we can be on the same page. So I'll start with my presentation. So as was said, today is World Accreditation Day. It's 9th June. It's celebrated 9th June every year. This is the first time you may be hearing this World Accreditation Day. But who has designated this World Accreditation Day? Again, there are two organizations. One is called International Accreditation Forum, IAF, and the other is called International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, ILAC, which the names you may not have heard. Who are they? IAF is responsible for oversight of accreditation of certification bodies around the world, and ILAC is responsible for accreditation of inspection bodies and labs, testing labs, calibration labs, medical labs around the world. And in India, there are two national bodies. You might have heard of the name of NABL because it's a laboratory board which is older, much older. It started in early 80s. NABCB started in year 2000. So NABCB, where I was CEO for about 6.5 years, National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies, and National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories. These are the two members of these international bodies from India. Now some private accreditation bodies have come up in India. There is one Quality and Accreditation Institute. There is one called FDAS, essentially in lab sector. So NABL may in future have some domestic competition. NABCB has competition because foreign accreditation bodies also operate in India. So it's not it's not a monopoly. Now their job is to attest competence of testing calibration in medical labs, inspection bodies and certification bodies. NABCB handles inspection bodies and certification bodies. NABL handles testing calibration in medical laboratories. And the basis of our accreditation is international standards produced by ISO. I am sure all of you have heard of ISO, which is International Organization for Standardization. It's a Geneva-based organization where India has a member. It's a membership organization, Bureau of Indian Standards, where I worked earlier in my career. That is a national standards body, and it's a member of ISO. Now here straight away, let me get into clarifying the term accreditation. It has different meanings in different sectors. Now you people come from a combination of healthcare sector and education, and sometimes in training sector also. But other than education and healthcare, in the manufacturing and other service sectors, there is another word which is based on ISO standards, and accreditation is a term used there also. So we have to be clear on the meanings of these terms and reconcile these terms, because otherwise we'll get confused on which accreditation I am talking about and which accreditation you are thinking of. So let's see what are the definitions. Now, you know, in education in India, we have two well-known accreditation bodies called NAC and NBA, National Board for Accreditation, and National Assessment Accreditation and Assessment Council. Even in QCI, where I work, there is a board called NABET, National Accreditation Board for Education and Training. Now, this accreditation has varying definitions, but essentially it means evaluation and rating of educational institutions against prescribed standards. So NAC has some standards, and against that it rates you as A+, etc. Similar definition is used in, almost similar definition is used in healthcare, where it is assessment of healthcare establishments against prescribed standards. Focus is on patient safety. So one thing which I want to point out here is that this accreditation in healthcare, for example, NABH, I'm sure you have heard of NABH. QAI also, as I said, is a new body, which is both in healthcare accreditation as well as lab accreditation. And they have an international body called ISQA, International Society for Quality in Healthcare. Now, both these definitions, as you will see, and both these accreditations, please remember, they evaluate the processes of an educational institution, the processes of a healthcare establishment. Essentially, both of them are evaluating the processes. When we come to ISO, it defines accreditation differently. It is essentially called third-party attestation of competence. So please remember this difference. Healthcare accreditation and education accreditation is more about processes in those institutions, healthcare establishment or an education institution. The accreditation I am talking about in ISO is more about competence of that organization. Now, initially, the definition was very wide, as you can see, competence of any body or person. Oh, that was a very, very wide definition. It covered everything, training, education, healthcare, everything could be called accreditation. But in 2004, ISO revised the definition and restricted it in a standard called ISO 17000. And this is the current definition which I have reproduced here. Now let's understand this definition. Third party attestation. I'm sure everybody understands third party. First party is the manufacturer or the service provider. Second party is the user of that service or buyer of that product. And third party is somebody who is independent of these two parties, who has no interest in these two parties. So there's no vested interest. He is independent of these two parties. That's called third party. So in a way, third party implies independence. Third party attestation related to a conformity assessment body. So now it's referring to only a set of bodies called conformity assessment body. It's not referring to, it's not an open-ended definition. Conveying formal demonstration of its competence. So we are talking about competence. Impartiality, that is very important. If you are an evaluation body, even if you are NABH or NAC, your impartiality is very, very important. If you are in evaluation, you have to be impartial. and consistent operation in performing specific conformity assessment activities, which means that repeatedly you do the same job in a consistent manner. You don't, differentiate. You accredit one institution, you follow one process. You accredit second institution, you follow a different process. That should not happen. So there is a need for consistent operation. And conformity assessment activities are labs, testing. It's a conformity assessment activity. Conformity assessment, as you can understand, it's a pure and simple English, assessing conformity. There's no other definition really. Inspection. Inspection is checking conformity. You inspect a product, you inspect a process, and you say whether this process complies or this product complies with the standards. Or certification, which means continuing assurance of quality. Inspection is one time. I go to a plant, I inspect a product, a lot, and I say yes, this passes or this fails, and that's it. My inspection is over. Or I go to a farm, I inspect their practices like organic farm, and on the day of inspection everything is fine. I say my inspection is over. But when we do certification, there has to be continuing assurance. So repeatedly, same kind of product should come out or same kind of process should be followed. So there is a time period for certification. There is surveillance. There is a mechanism to make sure that the entity which is certified continues to comply with the standards. Conformity assessment, there is a definition which says a demonstration that specified requirements relating to a product. So any product like electric iron or bottled water, process like organic is a process, good agricultural practices is a process, system like quality management system, ISO 9001, I am sure many of you have heard, food safety management system, ISO 22000, person, that's where yoga certification comes in. We certify yoga teachers and yoga instructors and yoga therapists. So person also, and a body. Body is, the conformity assessment body. So it's a third party activity. As I said, already I have explained what is first party and second party. So this is what conformity assessment is. Certification, conformity assessment is general term, inspection, lab, testing, etc. But certification is limited to certification. Third party statement based on a decision following review that fulfillment of specified requirements has been demonstrated related to products, processes, systems, or persons. So again, product certification like ISA mark, egg mark, process certification like organic certification, system certification like ISO 9001 certification, or person certification like yoga professionals. So now, as you would observe, accreditation in healthcare and in education is actually equivalent to certification in ISO world. Do you understand that now? Because as an accreditation body, NABCB does not go directly to that sector, does not go to the hospitals, does not go to the education institutions. It certifies the certifiers. The certifiers go and certify. But NABH is going directly. NAC is going directly. So they are equivalent to certifiers as far as we are concerned. So in our definition, NABH will be a certification body, QAI will be a certification body, NAC will be a certification body, NBA will be a certification body. And NABCB and NABL are accreditation bodies in the ISO definition, as I said. So please remember this distinction that healthcare accreditation and education accreditation, which is the normal term used, and training also we are using, accreditation of training. And the accreditation that I am talking about, which is the day-to-day World Accreditation Day, is slightly different. World Accreditation Day is about accreditation bodies of ISO kind. Now, the interesting thing is this accreditation, I will say my accreditation, can support your accreditation, which is healthcare accreditation or education accreditation. Let's see how it can be done. Now, let us see what is happening internationally. Internationally, we are finding that there is increasing use of standards of products, services, processes, systems, either by regulation. Regulation means by law. This is compulsory. You have no choice. Or by voluntary standards, which means it's up to you. If you think it makes sense for you, it makes business sense for you, it brings you good name, it gives you marketing advantage, it adds to your stature in the market, you go ahead and adopt that into voluntary standard. Otherwise not. But when it comes to regulation, it's a law. Standards are set by law. You have to comply. If you don't comply, you don't exist. Now this applies to both products and services. Remember that. And the grounds for regulation are written down in WTO agreements. There are two agreements: technical barriers to trade, TBT, and sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Both are applicable to products. Sanitary and phytosanitary product measures is about animal health, plant health, and human health. So food is covered there, plants are covered there. Rest of the products are all covered under technical barriers to trade agreement. And for services, there is something called general agreement on trade in services. India is a signatory, naturally signatory to all these agreements. And the grounds given are health, naturally, because it's a health issue, you will have regulation. Food is health in example, drugs is an example. Safety, things like electrical appliances where safety is involved. It could be unsafe product, so or helmets. Environment, we know about the environment, how the environment laws are there. Deceptive trade practices, where we have an apprehension that people will cheat. For example, educational institution is one example where if you give a freedom, I think somebody will set up a university in 2 rooms in India. So you need to fix norms and say that until you have this much infrastructure, we will not allow you to operate. Or long ago, cement used to be very adulterated, and in early 80s, government brought in a law that it must be ISI marked compulsorily. Or now of late, if you have heard of this in the newspapers, read it, hallmarking, which is for gold jewelry. Again, a product which is adulterated, and you don't get the real good gold what is declared. So hallmarking is being made in phases, being made compulsory. So that is trade practices, deceptive trade practices. National security, naturally, some of the telecom related regulations are coming in because of national security, because data should not be transferred, or people should not be snooping on us. Privacy of data, in green, what I am showing is additional for services. Those other grounds are common for products and services. Privacy of data. So we are talking about a data privacy law, and many countries have data privacy laws. And then public order and morals. So it's a very wide, anything to maintain public order in a service you can have. Now, for example, recently, some of you might have noticed there was a ropeway accident in Jharkhand about probably a month back, 2 months back. So that's a service which should be regulated actually. The operation and maintenance of ropeways, because that's a risky affair. It's a issue of safety. It should be regulated. Let me also at this point of time tell you, which might surprise you, because we are very fond of saying India is over-regulated, we are poor in implementation, etc. That as far as technical regulations are concerned, which are regulations of products or even regulation of services on these grounds, we are actually under-regulated. We are hugely under-regulated. Now regulations in the last 5 years, a lot of regulations have been made and brought in, because we discovered that we were hugely under-regulated, and therefore foreign products were easily coming into our market without any check. So regulatory area, you now understand that it's a compulsion by law. So you don't need marketing, you don't need incentivization. The disincentive is good enough that if you don't comply with the law, you shut down. So that is enough for people to comply with law. Of course, in India, we also are very smart at breaking laws. That's another matter. But the real intent is that. And voluntary regimes are where you are free to adopt that standard if it suits you. And you will be surprised that even in regulated sectors like food is highly regulated all over the world, and yet there are a number of voluntary standards and certifications going around. And if you have to access European market or US market, it is necessary not only to meet their regulations, but also to meet their voluntary certifications, requirement of the market. Buyer is asking for it. The country asks for regulations and the buyer asks for a voluntary certification. In textiles, a whole lot of certifications are there in textiles. Even if you meet the regulations of a country, you can't sell unless you have, you comply with those requirements. Or automotive sector, or aerospace sector. Despite that, voluntary regime is difficult. You have to incentivize. Why would people go for voluntary? First question they will ask is, why should I go for it? Why should I incur the cost? What does it bring it to me? What benefit does it bring? So we have in yoga certification also, and I am sure we will do that in Ayurveda training accreditation also. We will face those challenges. That why would people come forward, and why should they take this certification? Go, it's voluntary. Now in Ayur sector, coming to your sector now. It's pertains to health, no doubt about that. Ayush is about health, whether it's products or services. Therefore, it is liable to regulation. It has to be regulated. And India is following global practice largely, I would say. For example, you know that Ayush products are regulated under Drugs and Cosmetics Act, isn't it? And healthcare establishments are sought to be regulated under Clinical Establishment Act 2010, which is not fully adopted. I think 11 states have adopted. And regulations are not yet in place. Some minimum standards have been made, but not yet implemented. So healthcare still remains, in a way, healthcare hospitals. Now, healthcare establishment would mean Ayurvedic Ayush hospitals. Education, you know that education has been regulated in India, earlier by CCIM, now by NCISM and NCH. And same reason, you have laid down minimum standards for approval of these educational institutions, because otherwise people will start an Ayurvedic college in a two-room apartment. Even practitioners are regulated. Ayush practitioners, all the Ayush doctors have to be registered. Some areas are unregulated, like training. That's why ATAB came up. Paramedical personnel, Ayurveda professionals or Ayush professionals, who may be experts in massage, maybe nutritionists. There are areas. Yoga, of course, was unregulated. That's how the yoga certification came in. So there are areas which are still unregulated. Ideally, probably they should be. As you know, even paramedicals, in allopathy side now, there's a Allied Healthcare Act, which has been passed, I think, a couple of years back, a year back or 2 years back. So they are going to be licensed. So you will be licensed even if you are a MRI technician or a X-ray technician, you will be licensed. Now, why do we need these minimum essential standards by law? The fact is, we need them because we cannot have anybody operating in the market who puts consumers at risk. It's health or safety. That's the first, most essential part. So therefore, you do not allow anybody who does not meet those minimum essential standards, which will ensure that the product or service does not put the user or consumer at any risk of health or safety. Ideal situation would be that our minimum standards are on par with international standards. Nothing better than that. It will ensure that our products can be easily accepted in global market because our standards are so high. But unfortunately, for a developing country, and India has been one, still is, it's pretty difficult that across entire sector you adopt international standards. For example, to say that we'll adopt the WHO GMP instead of Schedule T in Ayush products probably is not possible today. So therefore, minimum standards, essential standards, is a good starting point for introducing quality into the ecosystem. So my own strong recommendation has been always that all these areas which are unregulated, which are health and risk liable to health and safety risks, must be placed under regulation. And they will also serve the purpose of mass healthcare, because accreditation to world-class standards will not serve mass healthcare. Healthcare has another problem, or even education for that matter. Now, voluntary accreditations, as they are called in services like education and training and in healthcare, or certifications, voluntary certifications, as we call in manufacturing usually, these are available. You know of NABH, which is voluntary. There is no compulsion by law. QAI, another small body. NQS, the government-owned NQS system of hospitals. These standards are endorsed by the international body as well. Then we have in medical labs, NABL, QAI, FDAS, GLAB, at least 4 of them which are listed on the website of Asia Pacific Accreditation Cooperation. NABH also has a program for certification of medical labs. We know about an NAC accreditation of institutions, which covers also yoga program. I'm not so sure whether Ayush institutions are covered. And then you know of Ayush Mark scheme. I'm sure you've heard of Ayush Mark scheme, which we had developed in QCI at the behest of, at that time, which was called Department of Ayush. Or even Ayush units are taking ISO 9001 certification, which is voluntary. If you feel like, you take it. If you don't. Or ISO 22000, which is food safety management system, applicable to a certain kind of products which can be covered under ISO 22000 also. So why do we need voluntary regime, especially in India, especially in a developed country? To me, the fact is that we as a country are unable to adopt global regulations, global standards in our regulations. We are unable to make them compulsory. As I gave you example, we can't make WHO GMP compulsory. Even today, industry is not ready to have WHO GMP compulsory in Ayush, even in normal pharma, allopathy. Second, even if we were to reach global standard, there is no limit to how far you can go in, in improving standards. So excellence, if you have to promote, to my mind, it's better done by voluntary method rather than using a force and coercive action that by law everybody has to be world class. That's very difficult. And voluntary regime also has one advantage. In case of regulation, you don't compromise on essential safety and health parameters. You can't compromise. But in voluntary standards, you can make that will be the minimum level, because the country's regulation is the law of the land. A voluntary standard cannot be below that. But you can higher than that. You can create grades and promote excellence and promote competition and aspirations. So by saying A plus in NAC, what are you doing? You are making universities seek higher and higher grading. When we made Ayush standard mark and Ayush premium mark, what were we doing? We were trying to encourage industry that, okay, take Ayush standard mark, but aim for Ayush premium mark. So that's the premium mark. That's the world class mark. This can also has one more advantage, that institutionally, if you have such a mechanism, a voluntary mechanism, which is as per global standards, you can present it to foreign country. And you can say, please accept this. For example, now Department of Commerce is negotiating with UK, and I'm part of those negotiations as a support person. And we have decided that we will seek recognition of Ayush premium mark, which may meet the requirements of UK regulations for traditional medicines. And we will also seek acceptance of Ayush practitioners, Ayurvedic practitioners in UK. Also, because a voluntary standard would normally be pitched higher than, it's usually pitched higher than the regulatory standards, and a voluntary certification normally will audit the compliance to regulation also, because you don't want to take the risk that you certify or accredit an illegal body or a non-compliant, legally non-compliant body. So they do a sample audit. So it promotes better compliance of regulation. So I keep telling the regulators that you should look at voluntary certification or voluntary accreditation as support to you, because it will promote your law being complied with. I can give you an example, interesting story. I remember in Gujarat, one officer who was in center went to Gujarat, rang me up that I am here as Principal Secretary Health and I would like to upgrade the hospitals of Gujarat. Can you connect me to the person who handles NABH in your organization? So I connected. And she said that, well, I want all district hospitals to be accredited and upgraded first. And when they started the upgradation, you know what they discovered? First thing they discovered was that all the hospitals, almost all the hospitals, were non-compliant with existing regulations. They did not follow fire safety norm. They did not follow biomedical waste norm. So all these kinds of norms were not followed. So first thing they did was to rectify this situation before they went for implementing NABH standard. So it does promote better compliance to regulations. If the brand of that NABH is a good brand, so everybody wants that brand. So he will make efforts to comply with the law also. So in that sense, they are support to the regulators. Are they substitute for regulation? We should never mix that. They are not. It does not address mass needs. NABH is a world-class standard. It will address the needs of medical tourism, yes. But will it address the needs of mass healthcare? To my mind, no. Same thing applies to education. So over-reliance on accreditation or voluntary can be, not good for the country. And it's most easily can be demonstrated in case of healthcare. Out of estimated 1 lakh hospitals, only 7,000 are accredited by NABH. So what happens to rest of them? In how many years do you think they will get to the accreditation level? In 15 years, this is the figure. To my mind, never. Similarly, there is an estimate that there are 1.1 lakh medical labs. Only about 3,000 are certified or accredited in 20 years. So what do you expect? It will not happen. So I keep saying that we must focus on minimum standards to address mass healthcare. As an aside, I am telling you. Education, same issue. To my mind, in education, infrastructure norms-based regulation will continue forever in India. Because if that regulation is not there, if it doesn't say how many teachers, how many rooms, what size, ratio of teachers to students, etc., we will have people running institutions in small two-room apartments. So sometimes I am not in favor of what NEP says that accreditation should be mandated. I am not in favor. there is a need for separation. Globally, regulation and voluntary accreditation or certification are separated. Globally, they are separated. And we should, to my mind, follow the same thing. And we should follow minimum standards to regulation, and accreditation should be voluntary. The accreditation of the kind which is in education and in healthcare. Please remember that. Remember the definition. Now, Ayush products. Are our Ayush products today globally acceptable? They are not. Is GMP certificate issued by WHO GMP certificate or COPP issued by DCGI or CDSO globally acceptable? In some countries, the answer, experts tell me, in some countries it is acceptable, but not in some of the major economies. So we need an alternate system, an alternate institutional system. And we have done this earlier. We have done it in organic. APIDA certifies organic, and that was accepted internationally. We have done it. I worked in EIC. Seafood certification is accepted in EC, European Commission. We certify to their standards. So we have done it. Same thing we did with the Ayush Premium Mark in QCI. So we should be, and Ayush Premium Mark uses accredited third-party bodies. Please remember that. So that's where accreditation is coming in. The scheme of Ayush Premium Mark, QCI does not certify. QCI is the scheme owner. It uses third-party bodies who certify, who go and certify the Ayush units under the supervision of QCI. So therefore, that's how the accreditation of my kind is helping, certification or accreditation. So how can, as I said, how can my kind of accreditation support your kind of accreditation, which means education and healthcare from where you come, and my kind of accreditation, the kind of background I have. Now, globally, there are clearly three models. A, direct evaluation. NABH has chosen to evaluate directly. It goes directly into the hospitals, or NAC goes directly into the universities and evaluates and accredits, isn't it? Second model is that if your workload grows, and that has grown actually for NABH and NAC, and I know for sure that they are finding it difficult to manage their workload. So one day they will recognize that they need help. When they need help, who will help them? Okay, so let's have some third-party bodies who can go and do the evaluation and give us the reports, and then we can take decision whether to accredit or not. This is called outsourcing or subcontracting. You subcontract the evaluation. You run the scheme, you accredit the hospital or you accredit the education institutions, but you use third-party bodies who will do the evaluation, go on site, evaluate, and come back. Why it is needed? It is needed because workload is too much. You want to scale up. Instead of 7,000 hospitals, you want to reach 50,000 hospitals. How will you reach 50,000 hospitals? NABH cannot handle 50,000 hospitals. So, and it increases your reach. Those bodies can be closer to the hospitals. There can be a body in Chennai which can deal with southern region. The cost is much less. People traveling, the cost of travel is much less. It can bring down cost of compliance also, isn't it? So that's how third-party bodies are relevant to this kind of system. If you want to be even more, you want to delegate even more, you tell them to go ahead and certify or accredit. You will keep a watch over them, but you tell them to certify, and this is internationally called a scheme owner model. You are the scheme owner, you become the scheme owner. And then you follow the international system, and you use third-party bodies. You tell them this is the standard, this is the process of evaluation and certification. Please go ahead and you do it on your own. We will keep an eye on you. And there you use accredited third-party bodies. Similarly, for outsourcing, you use accredited third-party bodies. So now you see the connection. NABH someday will realize, NAC has already realized, actually I was in NAC last month, they have already realized that they need third parties to help them because they are unable to manage the workload. So what kind of third parties? You can of course on your own decide some criteria and do that, but why not go for something which is internationally accepted model? There are international standards. So much of knowledge has gone into that model of accreditation of my kind that you say, okay, you get accredited first by an ABCB as per the international standard, then come to us and then we will approve you. That's you make it a prerequisite. This is what is happening globally. Even regulators are making, if you go to CDSCO, they want notified bodies first get accredited by NABCB. You go to FSSAI, they want Food Safety Audit Agency first accredited by NABCB. So this is the model which is going to be there. It's there already. What I'm saying is in Ayush sector, it's going to be there in future. And actually, we are working on that in both the areas where I am involved, yoga certification as well as Ayurveda training accreditation. In both the places, we are following this, beginning to follow this model. So please understand again, two regimes. One is regulatory regime, where the regulator is the boss, whether it is CDSCO, whether it's UGC, whether it's AICTE, whether it's NMC, whether it's NCI-SM. They decide that what are the norms to be followed. They decide how they are going to check those norms. Sooner or later, they will recognize that they are unable to do it on their own. They need third-party bodies. This is happening globally. It's happening in India. As I said, FSI has done it. CDSU has done it. PNGRB, which is Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, has done it. Sooner or later, there will be third-party bodies used. In voluntary regime, the scheme owner is the boss. Somebody has to be owning that system. So ATAB, where I am now involved, or YCB, where also I am involved, or QCI, where I was involved, the scheme owner is QCI. For Ayush Mark product, QCI is the scheme owner. For Ayurveda training, ATAB is the scheme owner. For YCB, for yoga certification as well as teacher certification. Not only teacher certification, the training course certification, accreditation as we call it. YCB is the owner. You decide the norm, standards, criteria, which they have done. You decide on what is the process of evaluation. Why do we need that process of evaluation? Because you want it consistently applied. If you are going to use multiple bodies, even more reason that you should write down that process and apply it so that all bodies apply it consistently. And then you approve third-party bodies. As I said, you can decide on your own norm and approve third-party bodies, or you can decide, oh, there is already a system available in the country. We have a national body which is identifying third-party bodies and crediting them as per their standard. Why not use them as a prerequisite and then check that they are competent for Ayush sector? It takes time. When we started yoga certification in 2015, it took us 1 year before a first certification body came up which could certify yoga professionals. Till then, QCI did directly. So we followed the first model. I'll go back to this slide. We followed the first model for 1 year. QCI directly evaluated yoga professionals and certified them. The first certification body came up after a year. The moment it came up, we switched to the third model. That okay, now that there is a third-party body, let it do certification. We are not going to do. And now I think there are about 15 certification bodies who certify yoga teachers and instructors and therapists. And now training institution accreditation of YCB also we have opened up to third-party bodies. In ATAB, we have already decided that while we'll start initially directly, because initially there's nobody to certify or accredit training institution in Ayurveda. Initially, we'll start directly. If you are having a training, if you are a training provider, you can today apply directly to ATAB and get accredited. But in course of time, we'll switch to the third-party model. And there we will use accredited third-party bodies. So now you see the link. Accreditation of training providers in yoga and in Ayurveda will utilize ISO kind of accredited third-party bodies. So that's the link. So you become a scheme owner. You don't become a certification body yourself. What is a scheme then? Because I'm talking about the scheme, conformity assessment scheme. So there's a definition. And if you replace conformity assessment by certification, that becomes certification scheme. And we say object of conformity assessment. What is the object of conformity assessment? In Ayush products, it is the Ayush products which are the object. You are assessing conformity of the product to the specified standard. In case of training, it's the training institution and training course which is the object of conformity assessment. You are evaluating the training course as well as the training institution where it complies with the standard. In case of professionals, yoga professionals, and mind you, ATAB also has the mandate of certifying Ayurveda professionals, which we have not started yet. It's going to be done. Yoga professional, same thing. Object of conformity assessment is yoga professional. It's a yoga teacher, it's a yoga instructor, it's a yoga therapist. You lay down the norms, what should he know, knowledge and skills, and then evaluate him, interview him, test him, ask him to perform yoga, see for yourself, and then certify. So we should clearly understand that if there is a scheme, we talk about a certification scheme or an accreditation scheme, clearly accreditation in healthcare and education I'm talking about, not my kind of accreditation. So there'll be standard or a criteria, which we have. In case of ATAB, we have a basic accreditation standard. In case of Yoga Certification Board also, we have accreditation norms. There will be procedure for evaluating and certifying, which is certification process, as we call it, or it can be called accreditation process if it is education and healthcare, and which will say accreditation process. And competence of third-party bodies. When you use third-party bodies, then you need third-party bodies who are accredited under ISO system. Now here is the accreditation of ISO system coming in. And then you have a governing structure. ATAB has a board, YCB has a board, NABH has a board. So you have somebody at the top, sitting on the top, who takes all the decisions, final decisions in relation to that scheme. So this is how a scheme is formulated and operated. So who are the players in the scheme? First is the scheme owner. YCB is the scheme owner. ATAB is the scheme owner. He's the boss. Like in regulations, FSI is the boss, CDSC is the boss, NCIMS is the boss, NMC is the boss. In scheme voluntary scheme owner is the boss. Which is the accreditation body now we are talking about? We are talking about NABCB. And then we are talking about certification bodies, third-party bodies accredited by NABC as per international standards, and then approved by either YCB or ATAB as the case may be. And this will spread in other areas also. So this is how it looks like. For example, this I made for ATAB. Here is the scheme owner, that's ATAB. Here is the certification bodies who will come up. The standard applicable to them is this one. ATAB also approves certification bodies, but also does other functions, promotional, training, and these certification bodies will go into the training institution. So ATAB will not go directly. Initially it will, but not later on. That's how. And it also owns the standard. Basic accreditation standard is made by ATAB. And it also owns the logo. There will be a specific logo which can be used to market that scheme. It should become the brand of that scheme. And this kind of accreditation from where I come, in one slide I would like to show you. This is the system, international system. As I said, there are international bodies on the top. There are regional bodies in almost every continent. I have shown 3 here. There are 5 actually. European Accreditation Cooperation, obviously in Europe. Asia Pacific, which applies to us. Inter-American, which is both North and South America. There is an African Accreditation Cooperation, which applies to Africa. And there is an Arab Accreditation Cooperation, which is some countries in North of Africa and some countries in Asia put together. The whole OIC, you can say OIC block, has Arab Accreditation Cooperation. And then below that are the individual accreditation bodies. So NABCB and NABL are here. They are supposed to comply with the standard, which is called ISO 17011. We all comply with the standard. And below that are the certification bodies, inspection bodies, and laboratories who have to comply with so many standards, respective standards. 1720 is for inspection, 1725 is for labs, 1721 is for ISO 9000 kind of certification bodies, 1765 is for product process certification bodies. One standard which is missing here, ISO 17024, which is for personal certification body. Yoga certification is using that. And down below is the either the organization or the product or the process which is under inspection, certification, testing. Now, IF actually evaluates these bodies every 4 years. I am an IF evaluator. You heard in my biodata which was presented to you. I am right now evaluating Inter-American Accreditation Cooperation and Arab Accreditation Cooperation. Right now I'm involved in it's a long drawn process. I'm involved. These people evaluate the accreditation bodies. I am also evaluated here, as you heard from my biodata. So I am actually next month going to evaluate Hong Kong accreditation body. Rather, at the end of this month, sorry, not next month, this month. And these bodies evaluate these, and these bodies evaluate these. So as we say in our, in our word, we have a lot of one-liners. So one of them is, in God we trust, rest all have to show evidence. So, see, we don't agree with anything unless you show evidence. So IF evaluates these bodies evaluate these bodies evaluate CBs, IBs and labs, these bodies evaluate here. One more, so this is the equivalence framework. How does it become equivalent? Because all these standards are international, common, whether it's US, whether it's Europe, whether it's India, whether it's Bangladesh, same standards are being used. Now the trick is, if the bottommost standard is also international, for example, ISO 9001, it's a common international standard all over the world. So if you are ISO 9001 certified by a certification body which is accredited by NABCB, which has been evaluated by APAC, which has been evaluated by IF, your certificate is internationally equivalent. This is the beauty of this system. And this beauty is being used in free trade negotiations by saying that if a product is tested in my laboratory in India, accredited by NABL, as per international standards, as per the standards prescribed by you, please accept that test report. If a product is certified by NABCB accredited certification body, as per your standards or as per international standards, then you please accept that. And it's actually referenced in, that's why I'm involved with commerce and I was in trade negotiations. Because we bring that equivalence so that a product produced in India, tested in India, can be accepted in Europe without further testing. So this is how accreditation helps international acceptance. That's the USP of this accreditation, my kind of accreditation, that if you get an accredited certificate, your international acceptance increases. But please remember, this is a voluntary mechanism. This is not a legally binding system. This is bodies have got together, they've created a system, but governments are beginning to accept this system. In trade negotiations, they agree that if you're IF or ILEC, part of IF ILEC system, we'll accept your test reports or your certification or your inspection report. That's how international equivalence is coming. That's how trade is being facilitated. So that's the USP of this accreditation system. So typically, so these are the kind of scheme documents which will be made: governing structure, standards for certification or accreditation, certification process, requirements for these bodies, because these standards, again, remember, ISO 17024, ISO 17065, generic standards. They are standards which have generic requirements for personal certification bodies or product and process certification body. But when you want to do for Ayush, for Ayurveda, for yoga, then you will add your requirements, especially in relation to the competence of auditors, competence of examiners. What is the competence they should have? That's not prescribed in these standards because they are sector neutral. So there is certainly need for adding requirements, which we have done. We have done it in yoga, we have done it in Ayurveda Training Accreditation Board. Also, when you launch a new scheme, how would the certification body come in? There's nobody who is today certifies, for example, yoga training courses or Ayurveda training courses. So we create a simple criteria, we create a provisional system. We say that, okay, we'll evaluate you under that provisional system. And then you come into the scheme, start certifying, and then within a specified period of time, say 2 years or 3 years or 1 year, depending on the preparedness of that sector. Now, this is a new sector, yoga. It's very, very new for all of you. So we have given 2 years or 3 years that you take that much time to become accredited by NABCB for this scheme. And there may be some additional documents, guidance for implementation of those standards. If you are going international, now yoga certification, we wanted to go international. It is already international actually. Ayurveda training, we wanted to go international. It is already international. If you see the listing, there are already bodies from Europe which have got listed. First option they have already exercised. So naturally, they are going to go for accreditation sooner or later. Then you may need local documents. You may need first thing in local language. The other day we were having a dialogue with somebody in Argentina, and I said first thing we need our documents of ATAB in Spanish, because the whole South America minus Brazil is Spanish speaking. So nothing will work there. You may allow some local deviations depending on the laws there. You may allow some deviations from your set scheme. So there is a scope for local documents to be made. Then even supervision. You may decide that I would like to go and see a training institution, even if third-party body is certifying them. I would still like to go once in a while as a sample check to see that third-party bodies are doing a good job. So those kind of integrity audits or validation audits are done globally. This is a system. So we will have more documents in ATAB accreditation. So now it should be clear to you why third-party bodies are needed. Because if we want to go international, first thing is this is an international model. It's if you go to a website of an organization called International Trade Center, you'll find 300 odd schemes internationally, private schemes, all private schemes, which are operating on this model. Now, what happens is you have number of independent certification bodies. They'll become your ambassadors because they will look for more and more revenue. They will go around marketing. They will do the marketing. You will need number of competent accreditation bodies of kind of NABCB in other countries. So that is another thing. And it allows you to reach across borders. It will allow you to scale up. There is also a system in IAF, which is the body, international body for us, who endorses scheme. We endorse schemes in IAF. So it is possible that you take your yoga scheme or Ayurveda scheme and get IAF to endorse it, provided more than one country show an interest in that scheme. We can easily get countries interested. So if IAF endorses, that means internationally all accreditation bodies will accept that this scheme is good and they will be providing service for that. So that is something which is something which we'll think about in future. It's a possibility. So I would like to conclude now. I don't know if I have taken sufficient time. Looks like. Uh, my conclusion is, number one, please recognize, because we are very confused in our country, even at policy making level, people are confused, that there's a need for both regulation, which means standards imposed by law, and voluntary, you call it accreditation, you call it certification, both have a place, number one. Number two, regulation is needed for protecting common consumer, health and safety. So focus on it first. Are there regulations wherever health and safety is involved? Please look at why we are not regulated. We should be regulated. It's unfortunate that medical devices today is unregulated in India. It's unfortunate that medical labs in India are unregulated at this point of time. It's unfortunate that hospitals in India are unregulated at this point of time. It's ideal if you can adopt international standards, but it's very difficult. As I have explained to you, in Indian context, it's very difficult to adopt international standards because they become compulsory. And the entire sector is not ready for that kind of compulsion. Then you use accreditation or certification, whatever you call it, as a voluntary activity to promote excellence. You can put grades, you can bring them to international level by putting in steps in between. Minimum standards by law, couple of steps, and you reach international level. So you can do that. Separation of regulation and accreditation or certification is absolutely necessary. Regulators need to recognize that these voluntary initiatives are support for them. Globally, we are talking about risk-based surveillance. We say every regulator should adopt risk-based surveillance mechanism. What is risk-based surveillance mechanism? If somebody is already certified to global standards, I would say he's less risk to me compared to another business which is not certified to anything. So this is the approach that regulators are beginning to use elsewhere. India always, I'm sorry to say, lags behind in what globally is being done, but it will happen in India also. As I said, if your goal is to go international, which is our goal in YCB, which is our goal in ATAB, then there's no option but to use third party. Because thinking that you can fly out auditors from ATAB to Argentina and accredit, my God, the cost will go up. They'll be prohibitive. People will not come up. Even in our country, costs are high. I mean, it's much easier to fly in an auditor from Chennai to Bangalore than from Delhi to Bangalore. So even in India being the size, please remember India is as big as Europe is. So it's good to have third-party model. It will be needed. Sometimes people say, where are the bodies which are competent? Well, competence will have to be built. It's not going to happen overnight. As I said, in yoga, it took us 1 year. It took 1 year for the first certification body to come up. So we have to, prescribe requirements, handhold, and bring them up. You can maintain a pool of auditors. You can say certification body third-party body should use this pool of auditors. They have to be trusted. You should have supervision. You should have suitable controls as YCB or as ATAB. And in future, even the regulators will need third parties. So I have focused on YCB and ATAB because they are in front of us. But in future, I can assure you, even the regulators, like FSI does, like CDSU is doing, even the regulators in healthcare and in education will use third-party bodies. NCISM will also someday use third-party bodies, where it will realize that it's not possible to manage the workload that they have on them. So this is how I hope I have been able to make it clear to you how my kind of accreditation can support your kind of accreditation. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing knowledgeable insights and greatly enhancing our understanding, our perception regarding this accreditation and its role in Ayush sector. Our whole RAV team greatly appreciates your valuable efforts, knowledge, expertise on accreditation. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us today. We are highly grateful to you. Now it's time for a question and answer session. If anybody is having any query, they can ask or can share their views.
I saw a hand raised.
Madan, yeah, Madan Thangavelu.
Yes, Dr. Madan Thangavelu.
Mr. Madan Thangavelu, sir. I think he has raised.
Anil ji, pranam ji.
Pranam.
Namaskar ji, greetings from UK. Bahut Shandar. Thank you for clarifying so many doubts we had in our mind. Anil ji, हमारी तरफ से एक सवाल है जी. can we incentivize at the lowest level for improving standards? इसका मतलब wherever we are manufacturing something, आपने तो you told us about good agriculture practice. वहाँ क्या is there something? Because people like some point people will feel they are lacking some knowledge, some information. You know, they are not bad people, मगर they don't have that basic. थोड़ा सा वो मदद जो होनी है वो नहीं हो रहा. थोड़ा सा और what can we do there instead of this ऊपर से लठ मारने वाली बात, वो तो that is it's not a democratic process. थोड़ा सा ऊपर से guidance. How can we give a little more guidance and a little more? Is this something we can discuss in this forum, or is this beyond our? Is it beyond our?
It's not beyond our. It's not beyond our subject. Whenever you set up a regulatory framework or you set up a voluntary accreditation or certification framework, that's what I've talked about today. Regulatory framework 1 and voluntary accreditation. Call it certification, voluntary framework. Immediately it brings in the need who will help the object of conformity assessment, which is training institution, Ayush manufacturer, hospital, medical lab, who will help them upgrade themselves. So it immediately brings in the issue of that there needs to be a framework for having competent people who can help. So certainly, fortunately in India, agriculture is never going to be regulated. That's my view. So it will remain voluntary. A good agricultural practice standard is there. QCI, we had made a scheme in GAP certification. We made a scheme for GAP for medicinal plants also. So certainly we can create a system of certifying consultants and trainers who can help. Or we can, I mean, I was talking yesterday I was with CEO of Food Authority of India, and we were talking about this part of good agricultural practice, because without good agricultural practice, the food industry does not get the right kind of raw material with all those pesticide residues, etc. So whether the university extension services, agricultural universities have extension services, how effective are those? Can they be leveraged to educate farmers about good agricultural practices? So there are mechanisms available, or you create, there are agriculture officers in states, there are agricultural universities in states. That's one mechanism. He said, well, they don't really function. Well, we have to make these mechanisms function. I don't agree with that there's a mechanism, but it doesn't function. We have to make them. It's their job. It has to be done. Or individuals can be certified. Like we are certifying yoga professionals. We can certify individual consultants. Certainly.
Anilji, I also want to remember here, for the sake of all our Gurujis who are here, the wonderful work that you people have done for Gram Vaidya certification.
Yes.
Such a wonderful initiative that has shown even how the most difficult task can be appreciated, understood, and brought to the attention of the world.
Yeah, actually, I mean, these principles of quality management and evaluation and certification, I'm glad that we are able to apply to traditional knowledge also, and hopefully elevate that traditional knowledge to get it greater recognition, greater credibility, greater acceptance overseas when it comes to overseas acceptance. Absolutely. So I'm glad we can do that. That's why I said, how can my accreditation help your kind of accreditation?
Thank you for being with all of us today and sharing your knowledge and insights, both Dhanyavad.
It was a pleasure to do that.
Thank you, sir, for the great clarification. Yeah. Next question, please. Viewers can ask their questions. Please unmute your mic and ask. Anybody wants to ask? Yes, please.
Yes, I will go on. Sir, these marketing agencies which are online, do they have any accreditation system, sir? For example, Amazon and also many online marketing agents, because they are marketing accredited product and non-accredited products. But
I don't think there's any system. I mean, a company like Amazon can always go for a voluntary standard like ISO 9001. Nothing prevents it from doing that. It might, for all you know, it might be certified. I don't know. But I did think that Consumer Affairs Ministry is bringing in e-commerce rules. So regulation is being brought in. Wherever there is risk to, as I said, wherever there is risk to consumer safety or health, there has to be regulation. So if e-commerce companies are selling products which have health and safety implications, then they ought to be, I mean, after all, pharmacies are brought under regulation because they are selling products which have health or safety implication. Same thing would apply to e-commerce, I think. And I think what I have read and seen that Department of Consumer Affairs is trying to regulate or lay down rules for their operation. So let's hope that that will help our problem.
Yeah, sir. This is a very important area because the customers are many a time deceived.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
deception, as I said, deceptive trade practices also is a ground for regulation, not only health and safety. So if somebody in some area, in some sector, there is too much of deception, for example, in gold, for example, in cement it was, then also government is, authorized to bring in a law and regulations.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else would like to ask or would like to share? Mr. Madan Thangavelu, sir.
Poonamji, with your
Harish Verma, sir.
He's not.
Poonamji, with your permission, if I may just ask one more question.
Sure.
Yes, please, sir.
Anilji, you talked a little bit about this international approach. We are, whether we like it or not, we are part of an international network today. And somewhere there, you have also shown us how the yoga standards were set up and how they may be starting to be noticed by different parts of the world, different member states of the. Now, could I ask a similar question for Ayurveda and our Ayush systems, particularly Unani, Siddha also? Is this something that is going on? Are there discussions going on? And if there are not discussions in progress, how can people like us from outside, myself sitting here in UK, or Harish ji is joining us from Toronto in Canada, how can people like us dialogue with yourself, or some people from California, there are people there in America or Australia. How can we engage with you a little more to learn about how to phrase our wishes better?
From the the current affiliations that I have myself, I am involved with Ministry of Ayush, as you know, with ATAB and Yoga Certification Board. I am also involved with Department of Commerce in terms of trade negotiations. So I know a few things. As I said, number one, we have prepared draft text for negotiating acceptance of Ayush products and acceptance of Ayurveda practitioners abroad. So you can expect that this will be first used in these current negotiations in the UK.
That's right.
Negotiations are on with Australia, negotiations are on with Canada. We have concluded a free trade agreement with the UAE. We are hoping to start negotiations, restart negotiations with the EU. So I am sure all this text will be presented again and again in all these places. So that is one way. Second is, I mean, for us to find support is, for example, some MOUs have been signed. ATAB has signed an MOU with somebody in Latin America. So drum up local support. We need to find some organizations, volunteers who are prepared to take on that responsibility. But it's very difficult from here to go and promote. I mean, there's a language barrier. For example, in Latin America, it's impossible for us, even if I go, you and I go, we'll hardly be able to make a difference because it's all Spanish speaking. So we need to get people interested, and at least interested people, tie up with them to promote this concept. Use our embassies, leverage our embassies. So there's multi-pronged effort which is needed. And of course, you can always get across to Ministry of Ayush, which has a dedicated division which deals with international relations. So I'm sure with that, we should be able to do something.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you. I look forward to staying in touch with Poonam Ji to learn a little more about how RAV can also guide us a little bit in these things. Thank you, Ji.
Anilji, namaskar. I am Dr. Harish.
I think Dr. Harish Verma, sir.
Yes. Namaskar. I am Dr. Harish Verma from Toronto.
Yes, namaskar.
Namaskar. Anilji, I'm a president of a Canadian Ayurvedic Practitioners Association in Toronto. We approached the Ontario Health Ministry for regulation of Ayurveda practice in Ontario. The officer there, he asked me very clearly, what are the risks involved in the practice of Ayurveda? So can RAV guide us for answering all these questions? Because
This is best answered by Anupam, who's director of RAV.
As sir, you rightly mentioned, if there is a risk, then regulations are required. Now we need to find out what shall we, because if we are talking about there's a risk for heavy metal, there's a risk for heavy metal toxicity like this, then there is a possibility government may ban Ayurveda.
So that's why, you know, when we designed Ayush premium mark, that is based on WHO GMP, that's based on international limits of contaminants. The idea was to promote Ayush premium mark abroad to allay this kind of apprehension that there might be heavy metals or toxicity in our Ayurvedic medicines. And now, as I said, Department of Commerce had already decided to present Ayush premium mark scheme for exemptions to UK. So certainly, if you were to make a representation to Ministry of Ayush or Department of Commerce, certainly they would be. Canada is, as I said, Canada negotiations are on right now. So this is the right time to make a representation. To of course, I'll convey it to Department of Commerce myself because I'm interacting with them. But it would be good to have a representation from you. Even if you send it to me, I'll forward it there, and bring this aspect into the negotiations. Acceptance of Ayush medicines as well as practitioners in Canada.
No, sir, there's not a question of contamination. As you very well know, mercury or arsenic or lead is used in Ayurvedic medicines. It's not a
The
contamination.
Ayush premium mark excludes metallic preparations. It's only on for herbal preparations.
Oh, then it's fine.
Yeah. In any case, the Government of India there is a legal notification which does not allow metallic preparations to be exported. It's not that we have done it in Ayush premium mark. Metallic preparations cannot be exported from India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, the herbal products also sometimes
Thank you.
due to the natural process, there is heavy metals or contents are there. Sir, we are facing the natural heavy metals problem. That is, we are not able to, people to Kerala or not all over India, is not, we are getting the genuine heavy metal and pesticide free products. So that is first we need free from the heavy metals products, free from the pesticides. Then only this mark will easily. Otherwise, we don't know. We are collecting the product and manufacture the final product, the heavy metal. So you and we are all are the because the problem. So that area, what is the solutions are anyway, sir?
See, for that reason only NMPB had set up and we had helped them set up a certification scheme for medicinal plants. There is a certification scheme available for medicinal plants based on good agricultural practices for cultivated herbs and based on good collection practices for herbs which are collected in the forests. Now the question is how to incentivize that, where it's voluntary and nobody is coming forward because there's no demand in the market. See, voluntary has a huge challenge. Voluntaries can be very, very challenging. So we need to, incentivize, we need to push people, we need to push Ayush drug industry into going for certified herbs rather than any herbs. That's the only way, because and I know that in food and in herbal products, this problem of pesticides, etc., comes from the raw produce, not from the processing. So we have to, in some way, and as I said, agriculture is not going to be regulated in India. It's too much of a hot potato. So we have to find ways of incentivizing good agricultural practices and luring people to adopt good agricultural practices and forcing industry or encouraging industry to go for those, certified herbs or certified fruits and vegetables in case of food, so that we can tackle this problem.
Sir, we are the main problem facing. That is, suppose I am sitting in the South India. Most of the, we are on maximum 240 drugs is enough for the 80% of the problem solved. So these 240 items, I think you are the right person. How to a quality product here, Mark? We need only 240. Then you want the 80-20 principle, at least 100 drugs.
Yes.
You apply the 20-80 principle, at
That's
least
right.
100 drugs, you can sanitize. Industry is ready to purchase, but we want a correct link. Where we go to go? Who will sit together? Who will monitor? Who will organize this matter? I think National Medicine Plan Board good job. But very unfortunately, all the matter of the State Medicine Plan Board is state-wise. So that area, there is a link with the National Medicine Plan Board and quality control area. That is a big gap, sir. It is my experience I am sharing. So you can take at least 100 drugs all over India for Gulgul, Jiraga. That is these 100 drugs, 20% of the 20 items are the spices. The spices is not a problem. So maximum 80 products, you can arrange a quality standard marked product. Our market is very high. The problem is solved. So that level of the how can you help, sir? So it is very useful. That is why I share my idea.
So we need to connect the State Medicinal Plants Board not only to NMPB but also to Quality Council of India, which operates these schemes. And QCI needs to make more efforts to interact with State Medicinal Plant Board and do capacity building. Certainly, I can convey. I am sure RAV is recording this conversation. Will make some kind of short note on some of these issues that have been raised. At my level, certainly I can. It will take me 2 minutes to WhatsApp the in charge in QCI and tell him this is the feedback I am getting and how you can help. So I guess, but I guess Ministry Wise should take the lead in, all these activities require money, so they should spare some money for quality every year and organize awareness and linkages and whatever needs to be done for quality purposes.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions from the viewers? Yeah. Yes, please.
Sir, yes, please.
Anybody else?
Can you? Hello,
I am
yes,
joining
please.
very late, sir. I think you are discuss the accreditation and certification of the hospital also, sir.
I made a reference to that. That was not really my topic.
So I want to, that is the quality assurance also, accreditation, the certification also, one of the quality measure of the service industry, sir.
Yes.
So how can you think, sir? You go to the, that is NABH is must, is need, no doubt. But how to possible a small unit, the one single man unit? Don't consider this is an allopathy hospital and Ayurveda hospital is totally different. So this Ayurvedic concept, we are ready to apply for that. But we need some guidelines from the total NABH, let's say NABH area. You go to the website, you want to some more ideas how to format and help that the NABH area. So the small players, otherwise they are huge amount they are spending for the accreditation, certification, training process. It is not affordable for the small units, sir. So that is also you can give me a good idea to the people. I think very much helpful, sir. That is my humble suggestion.
See, I have a slight difference of opinion here. I know I was in NABH, I was in QCI where NABH is also a part of it. When NABH was set up in 2006, I joined QCI in 2006. I know the aim of NABH was to promote medical tourism, to demonstrate world-class standards. That was the aim. That cannot, I have said in my presentation also, it does not cater to mass healthcare. So if mass healthcare is to be catered to, whether it's labs, whether it's hospitals, we need what would be considered minimum essential standards. That's my recommendation again and again. Please craft out, for Ministry of Ayush also my recommendation is, please craft out minimum essential standards. And those standards should be applied and not NABS standards, which are world-class standards, which all, as you yourself pointed out, small clinics, small establishments will not be able to implement or afford. Now, whether that work should be done by NABH, I am skeptical about that, because then NABH's branding goes, and NABH's purpose is something else. So we need to find a mechanism whereby we can set minimum essential standards and then implement those standards the smaller establishments. That's my view. I do not subscribe to the view that
I fully agree with your views, because we need the NABS certification, definitely. Then only we have the progress, we have only developed our industry, no doubt. But at least you can think it a small player. Suppose this is today is a webinar. Is more than 100 and 150 Ayurvedic practitioners are there. They are running the Ayurvedic hospital also. I am my two center is a certificate center. I am fully agree, because I am an organized man. But I am talking to only for the small players. That the small players, how can we help it? So definitely you can prove it, sir. At least 3 years, you give me a chance to introduce the NABH, a small level. Then after they are understanding all the level, and within 3 years, they can able to study all the area. We can 80 to 90% all over India, we can NABH accreditation hospital. So that is one area that is a big gap, because I don't take more time, so only 1 minute time. First GMP, good manufacturing practice introduced in Kerala is my factory, sir. Number of the allegations, number of the problems are created. So I received it to a test control department, and how to the small players who come to under the GMP. You know that in Kerala, 100%, not all of South India, 100% is GMP unit now. That level of the introduction is required for the NABH. That kind of the help from your side, I want to request, sir. I fully agree, need, not against for you. I fully agree, need for the NABH, but there is some method to introduce the small players. Please help, sir.
Sure, I would suggest to RAV to make a note of this, and we can probably approach Secretary Ayush and have a discussion on this subject. How to cater to the small establishments. Certainly, in every sector, this problem is there. Small sector, whether it's food, whether it's drugs, whether it's hospitals, in every sector in India, this problem is there, that there are 90% of food businesses are small units. So we need to fix standards which, without compromising health and safety of people, can be implemented at that level, not necessarily world-class standards right in the beginning. In a phased manner, hopefully they'll go up. But to begin with, we need to fix what are minimum essential, absolutely essential, without which they should not be functioning. That's my view. Let's see how we can help you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your help. Definitely it is useful, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Johri, can I ask you one question, please?
Sure.
Hello.
Yes, please, sir.
Yes, my name is Naveen Gupta. I'm an Ayurveda doctor. I'm speaking from London. I have a question to you. You told that you will be you are negotiating with the UK currently for Ayurveda standards or Ayush premium mark. So can you put more highlight on it, because we are in the process to make an Ayush register here, and we are just thinking in the association level to make an Ayush register for the registered Ayurvedic professionals here. So can you throw more light on this, please?
See, it's in the initial stages. UK negotiations have just started. So first the main text will be negotiated, then sector wise will come in. But I know for sure that a text has been made for accepting Ayurvedic doctors from here. Now, in UK, as I understand, one of our experts has worked in UK, Dr. Deepika Gunwant. She has herself worked in UK. That in UK there's no regulation and Ayurveda practitioners can practice freely. So the question is, this unregulated is good for us, or some kind of system in the country is good for us, so that it brings in endorsement of that government. So the idea is to talk to UK to bring in some kind of system in UK which will recognize Ayurvedic practitioners and give it some kind of government endorsement. This is the idea.
But can you just a little bit tell us more about when you say negotiations? We to be honest, I don't
Negotiation
understand.
means India will present a text. The text has been made. India will present this text to UK and tell them that this is the proposition we are making. You tell us whether you have a problem with this or you are willing to accept this. Then we talk it over and we decide. That's the negotiation.
And how the Ayurvedic professionals here in the UK can have a say into that document which are going to send to the UK government?
I mean, usually this is done in consultation with the different ministries and stakeholders. I mean, I don't think it becomes a public document like that. But there is nothing very great in that. I mean, you are only seeking acceptance of Ayurveda BAMS degree. There we are seeking acceptance that you at least start with a voluntary register. I think the text which is written there, at least start with a voluntary register of Ayurveda practitioners in UK. And
perfect, sir. This is what we are going to do. We are in the process of making the voluntary register of Ayush professionals here, like PMS from India.
You should not get nothing prevents you from doing what you're doing. Please go ahead and do that. But if UK government agrees, that will be a register maintained by a professional body, isn't it? If the UK government agrees to maintain a register or recognize your register at that stage, when first we have to get UK government to agree. Once it agrees in principle, yes, we would need to have a register. Then if there is already an existing register, it might be just a good idea to link it up that, okay, there's already a register, why not we adopt that register? So
how can we help you? How can we help you to make sure that it happens and it gets a UK approval stamp on the document which you
as a minimum, you can send me at least, I mean, send to Ministry of Ayush as well, copy me in. Send me a mail. What is your credentials, your association, what you are going to do or you are doing. I can feed into commerce.
How we can get your contact details, sir?
Oh, surely I can write it down on the chat box right away.
Yes, please.
So that you can anybody can write to me.
Yes, please.
It was I think it was there. Just hold on. Let me again share the screen and show you that it was there in my presentation.
If it was there, I will check it with YouTube link, sir. Thank you.
No, I am sharing the presentation. Has it come on the screen?
No, not yet, sir.
No, not yet, sir.
Not yet. Just a moment. Is it
Your
there now?
has come, but not the contact details.
Is it there?
Yes.
Okay, so in the first page, first slide, here it is. This is my contact details.
Perfect, sir. Perfect, sir. Thank you very much for answering this.
I can
Mr. Jori will be.
For the time being, I can make it larger, and you can note it down if you wish.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, sir. And we will keep in touch. And whenever you are visiting UK next time, please inform us in advance so that we have a chance to meet you and talk more about the accreditation, please.
Sure. If I do get to visit UK, I am actually going to Germany on 19th. I will be in Germany, but UK is much less visited. Sure.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You can send me a mail. I'm happy to be in touch and happy to help.
I will definitely send you the mail and definitely we'll arrange to be our guest. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions from the viewers? Anybody else would like to ask? Now we are already running short of time, so we may conclude, sir, today's session.
Sure. Thank you very much.
We have also noted the issues which needs to be looked upon, and we will definitely convey for sure to the authorities as well. And for further more queries, you can mail to us also. I have mentioned the mail ID in chat box also. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us today, and it was great privilege having with us. Now, to extend a formal vote of thanks, I request Dr. Manisha Rana. Dr. Manisha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poonam. Good evening, one and all. It's an honor for me to have an opportunity to propose vote of thanks on the 98th webinar of Gyan-A Knowledge Week, a webinar series organized by Rashtriya Ayurved Vidyapith. On the behalf of organizing committee, I want to extend my gratitude to the guest speaker of the day, Shri Anil Johari sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the deep insights, the deep work that you have done in this field. And thank you so much for vastning our knowledge. And I really hope each one of us, we have got a shared piece of knowledge. Thank you once again, sir. Now, I would like to thank wholeheartedly respected Sir Padma Vibhushan Vaidya Shri Drivindra Trigunaji, sir, President, Governing Body, RAV, for his blessings and continuous encouragement. I express my humble thanks to Vaidya Manoj DC, sir, Advisor, Ayurveda, Ministry of Ayush, for providing us his immense support and guidance. We are highly obliged to you, sir. I also extend heartfelt gratitude to Director Dr. Anupam Srivastava, Director RAV, for his constant guidance and motivation. I thank him for his valuable contribution and encouragement in all our efforts. I thank the organizing team of RAV and volunteers who work behind the scenes for their tremendous efforts to make this webinar a grand success. I'm also thankful and grateful to the respected Gurujans and the participants for their patient listening, people who connect to us throughout the country in spite of their busy schedule. Thank you so much. Topics and the speakers for the next webinar shall be shared very soon with all of you. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Have a great day. Thank you, sir. Now
Thank you,
the
sir.
meeting has already ended. We are parting. Thank you very much, sir.